Hey, what's up, guys? So today we are going to start our new unit. So we just had our test last week, so we're going into something a little bit different. So what we're doing today is something you should enjoy because it is super easy and it's something that every year that we've taught this, kids have latched onto and it's been very easy for them. So we're going to start into integers and we're going to explain what those are in a second. So first thing we need to do, we're going to talk about integer situations. So what integer or number can we use to represent different situations that are going on? So Ms. Bridwell is going to talk about what an integer is and some key phrases that you need to know. And then we're going to be doing some examples with you.
Okay, so integers, this word, a lot of times we hear sixth graders struggle with how to pronounce that word. They call it integers, they call it all kinds of things. So integer is how you pronounce that word. And integers are easy, okay? All an integer is, they are positive or negative whole numbers.
So guys, the big thing in this unit that we're going to introduce you to is negative numbers. So in elementary school, you worked with integers all the time, but you only worked with half the integers, which were the positive numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are integers. So in 6th grade, we introduce you to negative numbers. So there's a whole different world of numbers out there that you may or may not know exist. And those are the negatives. So that's what we're going to be working with a lot in this new unit that we're getting ready to start.
So Mr. Winstead just gave you some examples of positive integers. It's just whole numbers, things that you've used your whole life, okay? 3, 10, 420, 1,000,006, whatever it is. One that he said that is really important that a lot of kids forget, 0 is an integer, okay? It's still a positive, or it's not a positive, it's not a negative, but it is a whole number.
So 0 is a special case. It is neither positive or negative, it is just 0. It's kind of like, I like to say when I'm teaching this right here, you have a positive land and a negative land. Mm-hmm. 0 is like, it's like the border. So
it's
like
what separates them.
So if you're going from the United States to Canada, for example, there's a border there that separates two countries. 0 is that border for our positive and negative numbers.
So if we ask you for some examples of negative integers, let's say negative 17, negative 2, negative 540. Right? Anything that's positive or negative whole numbers. Fractions and decimals are not integers. Okay? Fractions and decimals are not integers. They're only integers or whole numbers. Okay? So that's one of the big takeaways is you have to know what an integer is today. Okay? The next thing is we're going to come up with some integer situations, and you're going to have to give us the number, the integer that would represent that situation. So before we can do that, we're going to talk about some words that when you read them, you know that that means it's a positive number. Or some words when you read them, you know that that means it's a negative. And there are a few words that when you read them, you know mean 0 or that border that Mr. Winstead was talking about. So I'm going to do the negatives. Mr. Winstead will do the positives with us. Okay? So I'm going to start with a word that means negative. We're going to say lost. Okay? So if you read the word lost, Mr. Potts lost $5. We know that that means he's losing it. Lost is a negative word.
Oh, we're going back and forth.
Yeah, we're going to back and forth.
Gotcha. So on that same one there, the opposite of lost, I would think, would be gained. So I like to think about this like in sports. If I'm playing football and I gain 5 yards, that means I got 5 yards. Or if I gain $10, that means I received $10 from someone, so I got more money now.
I'm going to say decrease. Okay, so if my grade decreases, it's going down. Decrease probably has a opposite.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So we'll go increase. Same thing, I increased my grade. I mean, my grade went higher.
Let's see. Let's do a 0. 0 is obviously one. Anybody play golf? Mr. Winstead plays golf.
terrible at it, but I play it.
Okay, your zero or your starting point is called par. Okay, so that if they say it's a par 3, that means the average is a 3. It's a Z. That's kind of confusing.
That means that you should shoot. It should take you 3 shots to get the ball in the hole. So if you score par, that means basically you scored a 0 on the hole, which is not bad. Now golf is a little weird because in golf you kind of want to be below par. That means you shot in the negatives. That means it took you less shots to get to the hole, which is what you want. So on the opposite side of that, you have above par.
So clearly below and above should also be some words that you're familiar with.
So another one that you'll see a lot in the zeros is sea level. So if you're at sea level, that means you're at 0. So if you look everywhere you are in the world, it's either above or below sea level. So if you're standing at the ocean, the top of the water is sea level. That is the 0 that they go off of. So on the positive side of that, if you're up on a mountain, you're obviously above sea level. So that will be a positive number. And if you start scuba diving and you go down to see the fishies, you're technically below sea level, so you're at a negative. Okay?
We like to think of money a lot. Okay, if I'm going to the bank and I take money out of my account, okay, we call it a withdrawal.
So guys, this one right here is the one that's most confused.
Yep.
Okay? So it confuses people because you think about it, if you withdraw money from the bank, your bank account at the bank goes down because you took money out. Some people like to think, okay, well, that's fine, but I have more money in my pocket now. That's not what we want to think about. We want to think, well, our bank account went down, so that is a negative number in our bank account. On the opposite side of that, we have a deposit. So if I get paid, what I'm going to do is take my paycheck and I'm going to deposit it in the bank. So if you think about what happens to your bank account when that happens, that means your bank account goes up and you have more money. So that's a positive thing, a positive number.
And then one other one that's tricky for 6th graders, okay, is if you descend, okay, if you descend, you go down. Is that D-E-S-C-E-N-D? Descend? I don't know, it looks funny. I'm gonna look it up. But descend means to go down.
Yeah, so if you're on top of a mountain taking a hike and you start descending down the mountain, that means you're going back down or going towards the negative. On the opposite side of that, you have ascend, which I'm just going to go with how she spelled this.
That's right. I just looked it up. A-S-C-E-N-D.
So those are very uncommon words I'm not even used to spelling. But ascending means you're at the bottom of the mountain and you're climbing up to the top. So you're going up in a positive. So the way I kind of like to think about this, guys, there's a ton of words that you could use that we can't list here. But if you look at that word and say, okay, I think that's a positive thing, like gaining, increasing, depositing. All those are positive things. They make you happy. They make you like you're doing something, you're going in the right direction. So that's a positive word. On the flip side of the coin, negative, okay, I lost something. Well, that's a negative thing. That's a bad thing that I lost something. So that would be a negative number. I decreased my grade. That's a bad thing. It's a negative thing. So that would be a negative number. All right?
2 more words real quick that you might see. So average, something's average, that's your 0. A positive would be profit.
Or above average.
Or even sometimes you'll see surplus.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's a profit or a surplus, that's a positive thing. The opposite of those, they usually just say it's a loss. Okay? I think that covers most of them, don't you?
I do, and I mean, if you ever see the word above, that means positive. If you see the word below something, that means a negative. So there's a ton of them out there. If you have any questions about them, you'll feel free to ask and we'll help you. But just think, is it a positive or is it a negative thing? So now we're going to go into integer situations, is what we call it. So we're given a situation, and we have to determine, well, what integer would represent that situation the best? So looking at number 1, we look for some keywords. So we look for a positive, negative, or a zero word. So if I read number 1, a gain of 6 yards, the word that pops into my head as a keyword would be gain. So I think, is gain a positive or a negative thing? So hopefully you know that a gain is positive, because we just talked about that on the previous slide. So it's a positive. So gain is a keyword that I look for, so I'm going to circle it. And the other thing is 6 yards, because that's our number. In math, we deal with numbers. That's what we look for. So the integer that would represent a gain of 6 yards is simply positive 6.
Now with the positives, we are lazy in math, so sometimes you'll see it as with the actual positive sign there, the +6.
Mr. Cost, please come to the counseling center. Mr. Cost, please come to the counseling center.
But sometimes you may it is perfectly acceptable just to write it as a 6. Okay, if there's no positive or negative sign in front of it, you assume it's positive. So either one of those we would accept. Okay.
So look for the keyword, look for the number, determine if it's positive, and then write it down. So number 2, a deposit of $10. So a deposit means I'm taking my $10, I'm putting it in the bank, so my bank account is going up. So that would be a positive thing, so a positive 10 or 10 would be an acceptable answer for that one. So, and the last one is decrease of 5 points. So here I see the keyword is decrease. Alright, so decrease means it goes down, so hopefully you know that is a negative and a -5. So when you're doing negatives, when your answer is a negative, you have to have the negative sign in front. If you don't have that, we assume that's a +5 and we would have to say that was incorrect. So positives, you don't necessarily have to have the sign. Negatives, you have to have the sign, so that would be a -5. So that is how we use the keywords to determine an integer for that situation.
So today's lesson is pretty easy, okay? You have an assignment on Canvas, okay? And we are gonna have you do, it's an IXL assignment, okay? You're gonna go to the 6th grade IXL and you're gonna do M1, okay? M1.
And if you don't know what your username and password is, because we have to make some new ones here recently, they are posted on Google Classroom.
Yes.
They'll have your username and your password on it. So there shouldn't be an excuse of, I don't know what my username and password is, because they're there for you to find. So you just have to look for them.
And like always, you must have a SMART score of an 85 or above to get credit for completing your work for M1. Okay, and that's all you have to do today. It probably took you longer to watch this video than it will to do this assignment. It's very easy.
So we have a new thing that we're trying to start out with. And if you watch this video until this point, at the end of the video, Ms. Bridwell has a key phrase that you can email to us to prove to us that you watched this video. If you email us this phrase, you will receive extra points on an assignment. And that phrase is?
Now, if you have to email this to your teacher.
That's not the phrase.
So you have to email, if your teacher is Mr. Potts, you email Mr. Potts and write down this phrase. If your teacher is Mr. Winstead, email Mr. Winstead. If it's me, email me. Okay, you ready? Mr. Potts is not gonna like this, but he's not in here right now, so it's gonna be really funny. We're not telling him we're even doing this. So, you need to email the phrase, Mr. Potts is a slow runner. Okay, that's what you need to write.
Mr.
Potts is a slow runner.
And if you send that to us, that shows that you watched this video until the end, which is awesome.
You're gonna get some extra
and you're gonna
credit.
get some extra credit for doing that. So we appreciate you watching. Go to IXL, do M1, and we will see you shortly.